the meeting to order. Today is Monday, March 6th, 2023. It is 9:06. We're going to start the meeting. The instructions for remote participation have been posted to the website, and we are hosting an in-person meeting this morning with a hybrid option for the public. Can we have roll call, please?
Chair Mulhern.
Here.
Commissioner Ward.
Here.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Here.
Commissioner McGordy. And Commissioner Roden.
Here.
Commissioner Christen. Here. Alternate Commissioner Winkle.
Here.
Appears absent. Oh, I apologize. Alternate Commissioner Crane. And alternate Commissioner Hashtrack. And staff members present include Executive Officer Uma Hinman and Clerk Analyst Larkin Filer.
Thank you, Larkin. We'll go to our next item, which is public expression. The Commission welcomes participation in the LAFCO meeting. Any person may address the Commission on any subject within the jurisdiction of LAFCO, which is not on the agenda. There's a 3-minute limit and no action will be taken at this meeting. Are there any members of the audience that would like to issue public expression at this time? I'm not seeing any in the room. Larkin, do we have any online?
There are none online
Okay, thank you.
that I can see.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 3A, announcement of commission appointments and the oath of office. The County Board of Supervisors and City Selection Committee appointments to the commission and special district election results. The oath of office will be administered to Special District Representative Candace Horsley and City Alternate Douglas Crane. So Candace, if we could please have you come to the podium to take your oath.
Would you like me to read it at this point? I, Candace Horsley, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties which I am about to enter.
Thank you. And if you would like to come take a seat on the dais, that would be great. And Mr. Crane, if you'd like to come forward and take your oath of office as the alternate, please.
I, Douglas Crane, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties that I am about to enter.
Thank you. Thank you for serving. Okay, we'll move on to item 3B, the selections of officers and committee appointments. And at this time of our meetings, generally with this part of the year, we select chair and vice chair. So am I looking for nominations?
I'd like to nominate Commissioner Mulhern for the chair.
Thank you. Okay, and Uma, shall we take them separately or together? Because I would nominate Jerry Ward as the vice chair if he'd like to continue serving.
That'd be fine.
I think it would be cleaner to do roll call for each separately.
Okay. And a question for Jerry, because he does such an excellent job as our treasurer, if he's willing to continue in that role as well.
Yeah, I've got it down pretty good, so it doesn't take much time anymore. And plus, I can't ever find anything wrong with them each month. I keep looking and nothing comes up.
Okay. Great. So Larkin, if you could please help us do roll call for the chair position?
Certainly. Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
I already did.
Yes.
Commissioner Roden,
Yes.
Commissioner Horsley,
Yes.
Commissioner Christen, and Chair Mulhern.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. And was that just for the chairs? We need to do vice chair and treasurer separately as well?
You could do vice chair and chair together.
Just
I
the
mean,
same.
vice chair and treasurer together, I think.
Okay. And did we have a second for that motion? I know that I made the motion for Jerry, and that was Pierre? Or Francois? Sorry, Francois. Okay, perfect. So Larkin, if we could have another roll call, please.
Certainly. And that would be Commissioner Christen, Commissioner Horsley,
Yes.
Commissioner Roden,
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Yes.
Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
and Chair Mulhern.
Yes,
Motion passes unanimously.
thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
since Mr. McGordy's not going to be here, could Doug Crank come up to sit up here with us?
Alternate city.
Yeah, but he can still participate.
I'm not sure of the rules on that. I don't mind.
We usually have the alternates that sit down here if he would like to sit here.
Okay,
Correct, it would not be as a voting member, it would just be as an alternate to sit up here with the other alternates if you wish.
But our alternates can't participate in discussion. It's hard to have discussion when he sits in the audience.
You're welcome to come and sit up here if you wish.
it's up to you, Mr. Crane. Mari?
Well, I mean, in the distant past, when Jerry Mello was the chair, we had it, and we would meet at the City of Ukiah Chambers, and there were plenty of seats, and everybody, including alternates who were present, would sit and join. So I think it's a nice idea.
Well, I hope he's going to participate, so.
Depends on how Mr. Crane, where he wants to sit. Up to him.
I don't bite, Doug, so. Not even my fault.
Okay, thank you for that. And if we're ready to move on to the consent calendar, the following consent items are expected to be routine and non-controversial and will be acted on by the commission in a single action without discussion unless the request is made by a commissioner or member of the public for discussion or separate action. Those items are 4A, January 9th, 2023 meeting summary. 4B, ratifying the January 2023 claims and financial report, February 2023 claims and financial report, the fiscal year 2021-22 audit, and the renewal of the office space lease in the Ukiah Valley Conference Center. And I'll look first to commissioners if there are questions. Mari?
No question, I just would move approval of the consent calendar.
Okay, is there a second?
I'd like to move second.
Thank you very much. Are there any members of, Candace?
I just want to make a comment that I don't want to spend time here, but I will get hold of you. There's a couple of questions I have about the financial reports. So I will be calling you to go over that. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Clerk Larkin, is there anybody on Zoom that would like to comment?
I do not see anyone raising their hand.
Okay, thank you. If we could have roll call, please.
Certainly. Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Yes.
Commissioner Roden,
Yes.
Commissioner Horsley,
Yes.
Commissioner Kristen, and Chair Mulhern.
Yes,
Motion passes unanimously.
thank you. We're going to move on to item 5A, the public hearing. The commission is holding a public hearing to consider, I apologize, I was trying to log into the Zoom. To consider adoption of the Ford Road, Kunzler, Ranch Road, and Carter Lane out-of-agency services agreement area application from the City of Ukiah and Ukiah Valley Sanitation District to provide wastewater services to 12 parcels. Looks like we have a slideshow presentation, and Director, would you like to take it over?
Thank you. I will hand this over to Larkin Filer, our analyst, who will be presenting this item. I also want to note for the record that there are staff available from the City of Ukiah, Craig Schlatter, and from the Ukiah Valley Sanitation District, Wing C. Fox and Ernie Whip.
Thank you. There we go. This is a public hearing to consider public testimony and proposed adoption of an out-of-agency services agreement, or OASA, application from the City of Ukiah and the Ukiah Valley Sanitation District to provide wastewater services to 12 parcels shown on this map, which is on the left side of the slide. 9 of the parcels are on Ford Road, 2 parcels are on Kunzler Ranch Road, and 1 parcel is on Carter Lane. 10 of the parcels are vacant, 1 parcel is underutilized, 1 parcel is developed with an agricultural supply business. And 11 of the parcels are industrial, and 1 has a mixed-use land use designation. For an overview of the application, the OASA area is facing considerable development pressure. There is a city district milestone agreement to provide coordinated sewer services in the interim period before city annexation of the area can occur. This involves the district extending services from nearby sewer main lines and preventing installing septic systems in a floodplain, with the goal to ensure that expected growth under the zoning and general plan can be supported by appropriate infrastructure and to create environmental protection benefits and prevent future threat to public health and safety. Based on recent MSRs prepared for the agencies, the city and the district have sufficient capacity to serve the OASA area at current zoning and density without adversely affecting existing service levels. The OASA area would be served by an extension of existing district infrastructure on Ford Road and Carter Lane, which you can see on the map on the left side of this screen. The OASA properties would become interim district customers and would be subject to district fee schedules, policies, and requirements. The interrelated nature of the city and district sewer collection, treatment, and disposal systems support merging of the agencies. The agencies have developed a plan for the interim and long-term provision of services to areas around the city seeking to develop. The city district agreement conditions a delay in detaching existing and future overlap areas between the agencies until minimum thresholds can be met. after which the district would cease to be independent and separate from the city through a LAFCO application process. The recommended conditional approval of the application is based on satisfying LAFCO law and local policy. This includes anticipation of later annexation met by the location of the OASA area within the city's recently adopted sphere of influence boundary, the commitment for orderly annexation of the area to the city per the interim services agreement, and the standard requirement for the annexation consent agreement and covenant for each parcel. The extraordinary circumstances are met by the unprecedented interagency cooperation between the milestone represented by the Milestone Interim Services Agreement, resolving the long history of conflict between the city and district and duplication of service providers. Also, the high pressure for development to occur sooner than annexation can be completed, and preventing future public health and safety issues from development of multiple potentially large-scale septic systems in a floodplain area. And also applying strict limitations, which is met by approval is not anticipated to induce growth or create significant change in build-out potential, since the OASA area is expected to develop with septic systems in the absence of sewer connections. And conditional approval would be withdrawn if the milestone agreement is terminated, except for properties already connected or that have commenced the sewer line construction process. Approval is conditioned upon receiving annual written updates on development and annexation progress, continued cooperation between the city and district as represented by the city and district interim service agreement, and receipt of the LAFCO annexation consent agreement and covenant document for each property consenting to future annexation to the city. The public hearing notice was properly published and posted on Monday, February 13th. No public comments have been received to date. And the general rule CEQA exemption applies since the application seeks to extend sewer services to parcels that would otherwise develop with the installation of septic systems and may have an environmental benefit by avoiding the need for the development of multiple septic systems in a floodplain area. And at this time, staff recommends that the commission find the Ford Road, Kunzler Ranch Road, and Carter Lane out of agency services agreement area for wastewater services from the city of Ukiah and the Ukiah Valley Sanitation District is exempt from the Environmental Quality Act under the general rule exemption pursuant to Title 14 of the California Code of Regulations, Section 15061B3, and approve the notice of exemption for filing. And number 2, adopt LAFCO resolution number 2022-2309, conditionally approving the Ford Road, Kunzler Ranch Road, and Carter Lane out of agency services agreement area for wastewater services from the city of Ukiah and Ukiah Valley Sanitation District, file number 0-2022-03. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Larkin. I'll look for any questions from the commission or comments. Mr. Ward?
Yeah, I do. I guess one of the things they're talking about health and safety. How does it go about getting a sewer, a septic tank in a floodplain? How did that go about? And why why they don't want to put any more in, but how does that work? I'm just curious.
Originally get.
Yeah. That's one question. And why, I mean, there's talk about pressure for the development. Why can't we just wait for the annexation to occur and do it right? Why does it have to be done now? That's another question I have. And then another one would be, what if the sewer line is put in and then some of the commitments didn't follow through. And now we have the sewer line, but now it doesn't apply anymore because of the, I think it was described as conditions of approval or whatnot. And that's all for now. I have a few more maybe later.
So I don't know if those are questions that you're prepared to answer. I might have a comment or two on some of them, and then I think that the applicants might also be able to comment.
Sure. I wanted to ask Larkin if she had any response or if she wanted to just have the applicant respond.
Certainly, I can start, and then I welcome the applicants to add on also. So again, the septic systems are put in place based on permits through the county, which are not in our purview. But the one agricultural supply business that's currently in place was developed with supported by septic systems. So it is expected that that would continue. Again, I don't believe we have county staff available today to answer what the codes are that allow for that, but that is what the current process is that's in place. The point of not waiting for annexation is that absent this out-of-agency services agreement process, these properties will effectively be developing with additional septic systems. So the whole point of doing this interim step is to provide for a better approach for long-term development upfront with all the conditions and safeguards in place so that annexation will occur down the line. And I think the applicant might be able to best address what would happen if the line is put in place, but the development does not occur. I mean, my understanding is these projects are going to come forward one at a time to the city and the district, and it's an expensive process. And so I would imagine that if the infrastructure is put in place, there's a high level of commitment from the property owner to proceed. But again, I welcome the applicants to address that further.
Okay, do we have any other commissioners with questions or comments before I open the floor? Francois?
Is there a timeline for annexation?
Well, I think that might be part of why we're having the conversation that we're having. And Commissioner Ward said, I think the quote was doing it right. And I am on the committee for annexation and tax sharing with the county, and we've been meeting very regularly, even 2 or 3 times a month to move that forward. I think the fact that it's been a decades-long process leads us to why we're where we are now. So my goal is that the annexation is forthcoming this spring, but I think because there are businesses that desire to develop in the area, that's why we're having the conversation that we're having now instead of waiting potentially for that annexation to move forward.
So how does the county feel about a master tax sharing agreement on properties that's going to generate millions of dollars of sales tax revenue?
Well, that's why we're currently undergoing
that's been the problem in the
annexation and tax sharing conversation.
Yeah. So you feel confident there will be a master tax sharing agreement on this one as well?
Well, the master tax sharing
I mean,
agreement.
not master tax, but a tax sharing agreement on these parcels.
Yeah, just for clarification, the master tax sharing agreement, it was actually brought forward at this point with all 4 cities working together collaboratively and 2 members of the Board of Supervisors. So it looks very promising to be able to move that forward. And just regarding this property, we've been able to work directly with the city of Ukiah, which would most affect this area. And we're continuing those conversations.
Yeah, I've just been on this council or this commission a long time. I haven't seen it yet, so I hope it happens. It's just been a long, long process.
It has been a long process, and I'm giving it more than hope at this point. I'm giving it some, strong goals to at least have the conversation with the full board. Candace?
I would say, having watched that same process for so many years, I definitely feel like they are further along than ever before in all the attempts. The cooperation among the different agencies is very high. So it appears to me that this is it. This will be the time that it actually happens. They've come so far, and there's so much cooperation. There's been a lot of comment about the sand district in the city, but we're seeing it in a lot of other agencies as well, so.
Yeah, and I expressed this the last time we talked about this issue, was that it's also personalities that get on these commissions that change too. And that's what I worry about. It may be cooperation today, but when the new council or a new sand district board member comes on, it could change. So that's my concern. So if there is cooperation, let's get it done while there is cooperation.
I think that goes back to the right timing, right? If the timing is right to get the cooperation to be able to move this process forward and create a better project for the community in the future in the long run, I think that that's very important. If there aren't any other commissioners with questions, Francois, did you have questions or?
No, I
that
was just going to
answered?
comment that, if there is a possibility that it's not, an agreement won't be forthcoming annexation, this interim solution is probably good. I know in Boonville, we've been trying to put in a wastewater system now, and we've been planning for 7 years. And it's just sort of like this interminable process. And in the meantime, the wells are contaminated by coliform, and we just need to get something done. And this sounds like a reasonable plan.
Yeah, it seems like a good pathway. So at this point, Mr. Crane.
There's another aspect of this particular area, and it's to the point that you made about contamination of the groundwater. Quite often, in areas of this nature, in order to separate the groundwater from the waste system, it requires a Wisconsin mound or some other sort of more complex system, which can fail. If, as a greater community, we wind up with this waste going to the sewer treatment plant instead of into the groundwater, that's a lot safer arrangement for the greater community, particularly with where the water is harvested in this valley, which is essentially downstream from this area.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a health and safety factor here.
Thank you for that. Well, Director?
I'd like to just add that this area is included as in the recently adopted general plan update for the city that included an annexation plan, and this area is included in that annexation plan. And they also do have a pre-application on file for annexation of this area.
Are there members of the audience in person in the room that would like to comment? And then I will be looking to go on Zoom if anybody would like to raise their virtual hand.
Did you open a public hearing?
Morning,
Yes.
Commissioners, Ernie Whiff. To answer Jerry's question about the extension of sewer, most of these properties lie within an area where the collector mains already exist. So there may be a rare one on Kunzler Ranch Road that would need a main extension. I think there's a couple of parcels in there that might need a main extension, but those, I'm sure anybody that's going to develop is going to commit to that. So, like I say, the sewer collector mains run through Ford Road and Kunzler Ranch.
How long has it been there?
Since they built El Dorado,
Okay, then why did they need septic tanks?
because of the fact that it was never possible to hook up to it because of the fact that it wasn't either in the city or the district's sphere.
Oh,
And I am confused how all of those lines ended up there without being in anybody's sphere originally. And I have not ever had that explained. So, I
All
think
right.
that.
Thank you, Ernie.
Any other questions? Okay.
Good morning, Commission and Chair Mulhern, Craig Slaughter, Community Development Director for the City of Ukiah. I'll make my comments really brief. I did want to just say thank you again to LAFCO staff, also district staff and the ad hoc. You know, we started something here about a year ago based on collaboration, and that's continued to pay off and move all these projects that, at least since I've been in my position, people were saying would never get done, are actually being completed, and that's due in part to leadership on the commission as well as the LAFCO staff and district staff. You know, I wanted to really quickly address, actually, you all are already kind of coming to the same conclusion around timing here. One of the purposes of this out-of-agency service agreement was to provide an alternative to the septic that was kind of rampantly looking like a more realistic possibility due to the development pressures. So by having a process where we can provide interim sewer services prior to annexation, then we kind of mitigate the potential for that occurring. The city does fully intend to annex as quickly as we possibly can, but we all know that just takes time. Can't rush some of these things too much. Hopefully within a year or two, provided there's a master tax sharing agreement, we will be moving forward with annexation. But again, just want to say thank you for all the hard work of LAFCO staff, district staff as well. Thank you.
Good morning, Commission. Wingsy Fox, Ukiah Valley Sanitation District General Manager. I just wanted to echo Craig's comments to thank everyone, all parties involved. It's been an honor to be part of this process, bumps and smooth roads included. And I do want to speak a little bit to the comment of, yes, this is the right time, we've got the right people on board, but we're not just getting along just to get along because we like each other. We're doing this because it's the smart way to do things. And so we can't prevent future governing bodies to have different characters or different opinions, but we're trying to set things up in a documented process to not allow that to happen, so that no one person can come into any governing body and for lack of a better term, blow things up. So we've got things, again, clearly documented. We've got an interim services agreement between the city and the district with clear termination notices, very long notice period. So we don't anticipate things to go wrong because we hope that everyone sees that this is for the benefit of all. But again, if people do come on board with differing opinions, we've got a system in place. The sewer lines that would already be constructed cannot be taken away, but everyone is motivated to work together because if we don't, then future applications we know won't be approved. So everyone is, again, motivated, incentivized to continue to work together as governing bodies for the whole Ukiah Valley. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll be looking for virtual hands online, and then we'll go back to the commission. I am not seeing any more public comment from online, so Mr. Gonzalez.
Actually, I wanted to move staff recommendations, and again, want to thank the parties, the agencies for coming together. This is ultimately, I think this is a safety issue. I mean, it doesn't make sense to add any more septic in the valley, and basically, as long as everybody's getting along, and actually, honestly, it kind of puts the focus back on the county to help with the annexation process and go there. So I think it's going to shift from us not getting along on this end to let's get it done on this side. So to quote that country guy, get her done. So.
I have some questions, if I could.
Okay.
Go ahead, Maury.
You make a motion.
Yeah, that was a motion.
I would second
Okay.
the two recommended actions.
Thank you. Mr. Ward?
Yes, I had a question on the parcel. There's other parcels in the area around there. Why aren't they included? You know?
Larkin, is that a question that you can answer for us?
This is basically the scope of the project that was proposed. I do believe there are other properties that there may be interest down the line, but this was the scope of this first application.
Okay,
So
there could be more.
there could be more down the line.
And the parcel to the very top there on the, to the north, what's the significance of that particular parcel? It's not related to the others. I think it's the Carter parcel.
Correct. That's the one that was identified as an underutilized property. The applicant may be able to speak to that a little bit more, but again, it's a property that's adjacent to the infrastructure and sounds like there's interest in development.
Okay. And what happens if, oh, I'm sorry, you have an answer to that?
Yes, we've received a request for sewer connection from that parcel going back a couple of years. So there was an interested project for that property owner.
Is it residential or commercial development?
It's, well, it's, you know, mixed use, land use. But
Yeah, the property is zoned for basically a subdivision. But this particular application was for a commercial building that they would be putting in, basically for cannabis processing, I believe. But it was, and, you know, it's in close proximity to one of Millview's wells. It's, doesn't make sense to put a septic system.
Okay.
And the line actually is in Carter, the existing sewer main is in Carter Lane.
Okay.
Right, you know, a couple hundred feet away from where their development's proposed.
All right, thank you. Is this item today conditional upon the property owner signing their agreements as well?
That's correct. It is one of the conditions of approval that each property owner has to sign that agree to annex
So
covenant.
if we approve it today, and what if they change their mind and don't want to sign, how does that work? Just,
The way the language is on the condition that they have to sign that before the
okay, before this goes into
extension
effect.
can.
I know there's a motion and a second, but I would like for this commission to have a review of this item every year, if we could, to see us developing. I know the city suggested it may take a year or two for annexation, but I think I'll be on this commission 3 or 4 or 5 years from now, but I would like to say from 4 years from now saying it got done. But, you know, I'm a little skeptical about these kind of processes, especially with the tax sharing. So if we could have a review, I know we've done it in the past with MSRs and stuff, where we have an update every year or something on how it's progressing. I think it would be
Yeah.
important.
That was included in the,
That's
in the
included?
conditions.
Okay, good.
Yep. Candace?
I'll shut up.
Thank you for your comments. No need.
I just would like to comment from the sanitation district side of things. Both Ernie and I went for another 4 years, and the main reason was to see this through. So we are dedicated to, we have no idea if the city's going to be able to annex. They're doing everything they can to move it forward and to reach that goal, and we are supporting that. So I would just say that at least for the next 4 years, the district will be, at least from the two of us, we're supporting this process, and that's why we ran one more term. Well, I would just say that the members that voted for this, they're still on there, and they voted for it, so.
The vote. I am not seeing any. So, clerk, could we please have the roll call?
Certainly, and to be clear, we've closed the public hearing at
Yes,
this
I'm
point, is that
closing-
correct?
Closing the public hearing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Gonzalez,
Yes.
Commissioner Roden,
Yes.
Commissioner Horsley,
Yes.
Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Commissioner Chris,
Yes.
And Chair Mulhern.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you for being here today. And we do not have any workshop items today, so we'll move on to item 7A, draft policy for Commissioner Teleconferencing. This is an updated recommendation from the Policies and Procedures Committee for teleconferencing as it relates to AB 2449. Uma, would you like to take this one?
Sure. Thank you, Chair Mulhern. Since the declaration of emergency for COVID in 2020, the state allowed provisions in the Brown Act that allowed members of decision-making bodies to attend Brown Act meetings by video and teleconferencing. Most recently under AB 361, and for which we adopted resolutions at the beginning of each meeting. With the expiration of the emergency declaration on February 28th of this year, the provisions of AB 361 also expired, and the November 2022 legislation known as AB 2449 went into effect. AB 2449 essentially moves decision makers back into in-person attendance to meetings, but also allows for teleconferencing under limited and very specific conditions. The limitations on teleconferencing apply to commissioners, but not to staff. And the Policies and Procedures Committee met on February 16th and recommends the draft policy on page 112 of the agenda packet, which is also attachment 1 of the staff report. Staff recommends the Commission adopt Resolution 2022-2310, approving the Commissioner teleconferencing policy. And that concludes my presentation if there are questions.
Thank you. I'll come back to the commission for questions. Candace?
When we say commissioners, does that include alternates?
I believe it also includes alternates. Yes.
That question came up and I was not able to answer it, so, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ward?
Did this pretty much follow state law? I mean, was there any deviations from it?
There are no deviations from state law, and there is a provision in the policy that speaks to if the law changes, that it would defer, our policy would defer to state law. It's good to note, too, that there are various pieces of legislation moving through that could change this policy, so that's something that we'll have to track in the future.
Thank you. Do you have another question?
I have one more
before we go to Mr.
question.
Crane?
I believe it talked about if you are at home, you have to have a public notice on your front door to say this is a public meeting. And then it also talked about something else if you're at home. Oh, you have to have the agenda posted, I think. Is that true?
And you also have to note if there is anyone over the age of 18 in the room with you as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say that that the laws have changed and that we're just going back to normal. And we have to wait for any kind of policy changes from the state before we're back to virtual meetings, and we should just anticipate trying to be in person as much as possible. But that is why we have alternates that are available. Mr. Crane?
The question about alternates, it's my understanding, which may not be correct, that an alternate who's not participating in the meeting but monitoring it does not fall under this set of rules.
I believe that's correct. If our legal counsel, Marcia Birch, is on, maybe she can speak to that.
I don't see Marcia, but I have asked this question, and as an alternate, you're not voting. So the meetings are open to the public to be able to listen in as well, so it wouldn't preclude anybody from listening into the meeting, whether they're an alternate or just an interested public member or elected official.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Gonzalez?
Yeah, the way I envision it is if you were at home because you knew that I was going to be here, then that's a scenario you're talking about. But I think where we kind of want the alternates is if you get a hold of UMA and find out that I'm not going to be here, so you're going to have to actually be a voting member. And so it's kind of like Ms. Mulhern said, it's like it was.
Notices would apply in that case.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I was kind of foreseeing, let's say I had COVID and didn't want to come and spread the happiness with the rest of you, and I guess if I want to post and somebody wants to come to my door and say hi when I've got COVID, I guess if I'm at home, but then hopefully you don't have it and you could be here in my stead, or vice versa, one of the alternates, and so would be moot, like the old days where you weren't going to participate, you got a hold of the director, and then you didn't show, and one of the alternates took your spot.
Except if you do get sick, he's got to immediately put something on his door that says there's an agenda, that he's now a voting member.
Yeah.
Well, and the timelines for that are much more gracious than they were in terms of adjusting for the reality more quickly.
And I think there's legislation pushing through where there's pushback on the absoluteness of this. So I think that's why the language is such that if the law changes, that it'll go there. I think the only thing we kind of kicked around would have been our committee meetings and how that would work there. But at this point, everything's going to be the same.
Thank you. I'll go to Candace, and then I'll look for a comment in the room, and I do see we have a virtual hand raised.
This is for Umo. The summary of AB 2449 requirements, there's 2 pages. Where did that come from?
That was provided by a legal firm and then sent out through the CSDA network.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any comments on this item from the room? And Elizabeth, I see that your hand is raised virtually. Withdrawn. And I would look for a motion. I do see that Marcia Birch has joined us if there are any questions for legal counsel. Otherwise, I would look for a motion for approval of the recommendation.
So moved.
Thank you. Marcia, did you want to make an additional comment?
No, I don't. I mean, we went over this all pretty thoroughly, and unless anyone has questions, I think it's ready to go.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we do have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Ward,
That's okay.
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Yes.
Commissioner Roden,
Yes.
Commissioner Horsley,
Yes.
Commissioner Kristen,
Yes.
and Chair Mulhern.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Take a 10-minute break.
We sure can. We are going to take a 10-minute break and come back to our other items.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What's the combo for this out here?
Go to item 7B, the mid-year budget and work plan report. Executive Officer, come in, please.
Thank you, Chair Mulhern. This is an informational report that's intended to provide an overview of our fiscal situation and an indication of whether any budget adjustments may be required before the end of the year. It also helps to inform the annual budget development process for the following fiscal year, which we start in February. The staff report starts on page 116 of your agenda packet and summarizes the revenue and expenses through January 31st of this year. The expense categories include basic services, which is our staffing, which currently consists of executive officer, analyst, and clerk for the first part of the year. Other categories include services and supplies, which is our office operations, our memberships, and our insurance, as well as our legal counsel contract. And the last category is the work plan. Overall expenses through the end of January are at approximately 42% of budget, the first two categories being closer to the 50% mark. Application expenses are summarized in Table 2 on page 117 of your packet. These are expenses that are paid by the applicant and are billed per the adopted service rates. The service rates cover contract staff time and a portion of overhead that are used to offset operational and work plan costs. Our reserves are on target with per commission direction and policy, and the work plan contingency of approximately $30,000 is intended to cover possible work plan task overages and CEQA costs, which are not included in the work plan budgets. The work plan status report is on the bottom of page 117. 2 single provider MSR, municipal service review, and sphere of influence updates were scheduled for this fiscal year. Those included the City of Ukiah and the Ukiah Valley Sanitation District, both of which were multi-year efforts and were adopted in December of this last year. These two studies were last reviewed, these two agencies were last reviewed in 1984 and represented major milestones and accomplishments for LAFCO and the agencies. Also scheduled for this fiscal year are 2 multi-district regional studies, which are broken into coastal and inland region water and wastewater districts. Staff will be initiating the coastal region studies in early April. That region studies consist of 7 water and wastewater districts and 10 mutual water companies. The inland region water and wastewater district studies will follow the coastal studies and will include 8 districts and 8 mutual water companies. The report also includes a summary of staff activities during the first half of the fiscal year and anticipated for the remainder of the year. Those tasks are included on page 119 of your packet. With the completion of the Ukiah and the Sanitation District MSR and sphere updates, application processing has taken precedence over the remainder of the work plan. Additionally, staff has spent considerable time responding to public inquiries, agency requests for support and guidance regarding operations, formations, and LAFCO processes. Other main tasks have included conducting 2 special district elections, a public member solicitation, and development and implementation of an RFP for legal services. And policy development is another task. Through the end of the year, the fiscal year, staff will be focused on budget and work plan development for the next fiscal year, application processing, and initiating the coastal region MSR and sphere updates. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer questions.
I'll look to the commissioners for questions on the plan. Mari?
I just have a comment, which is that I appreciate so much how well organized and transparent our staff, LAFCO staff are. It's really great work, and we're all being kept apprised of everything that's going on and the status of all the projects. So I just want to express appreciation.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? Mr. Ward?
Yes, thanks. On Table 1, the mid-year summary expenses, I just want to point out that that's 7 months, not 6 months. So we're not really, if you take December, our percentages are probably less, right?
For the 6 month, our percentages will be a little bit less,
Yeah.
yes.
And on our work plan, we're at 33% after 7 months, but I'm not sure what it was at December, but we're again behind on our work plans. Do you anticipate the last two, the inland water ones and the coastal ones, done by the fiscal year?
We likely will not get to the inland water and wastewater districts. I want to point out that each of those regional studies contain multiple districts. So we'll be starting with the coastal ones in the beginning of April, and we'll get as far as we can.
So it'd be safe to say that at the end of our budget year, we're going to be having excess funds available again because we didn't expend it on the work plan.
That is likely, yes.
And I think there's a comment in here that it's because of staffing issues.
It's primarily because of the workload. We've
Yeah.
focused on the application processing, and
I know it's a little premature, but are you going to be talking about our next budget year of adding more staff?
I have made an offer for an additional employee, so I'm waiting to hear on that. We can discuss it during our budget development discussions.
I think I asked last month or last time where we are on a clerk. Have you found a clerk yet?
We are in the process of developing that list of duties and soliciting.
But no, the answer is no.
Not yet.
Okay. I just don't want to fall behind on these work plan issues. It just seems like year after year, we don't finish what we hope to anticipate. And it really boils down to lack of staffing, or we get bogged down in MSRs or SOIs that we didn't anticipate. I just want to stay on track with it because there's quite a few other ones that needs to be approved. And with the water issues and stuff we're having, not now with all the rain, but we'll definitely want to keep up where we're at with our water districts. And then we've got consolidations coming down the line too. So it's really important to stay on task.
There is a large workload, yes. We have done outreach to various consultants who are all booked up for the next 10 months. So it has been difficult to get extra help at this
Okay.
time.
And what Mari said, I agree. You do a great job with the staff you do have. It's just want to get things done. Want to get annexations done. I want to get our work plans done. Thanks.
Understood.
Thank you. Mari?
I'm curious about these mutual water companies and how they were discovered or identified after, the plan. What do they do? And could you just talk a little bit about how they're newly discovered or
Sure.
identified, whatever?
Sure. Mutual water companies are private water companies. They do not fall under the jurisdiction of LAFCO. However, state law was passed, and I can't remember the year, several years ago that required mutual water companies to provide information to LAFCO upon request. So in 2018, I believe, we put together a brief report on mutual water companies, and we discovered those through looking at the state water board's website, which has a list of all of the mutual water companies and private commercial water companies. So that's how we were able to ferret those out, and we've been working with, we have worked with the county GIS department to map most of those. But what we'd like to do is in these regional studies to, rather than have a separate report on mutual water companies, get a real regional look at the water issues, so bring those into those regions' discussions.
I noticed that there was a lot of delays due to waiting for a master sales tax agreement. So once that agreement comes to fruition, is there going to be a huge onset of requests for your time at that point? Because all of these agencies will be anxious to move forward with their proposals.
For the applications that have been filed with LAFCO, we do anticipate that those will be moving forward for hearings relatively soon after that master tax share agreement is in place. It really streamlines that tax share agreement process to have that master tax share agreement in place. So for most of the applications we have on file, that is the holdup, that is the incomplete component.
So just going back to the staffing, I guess, is, yeah, just to be prepared for that.
Yes, and I have been trying to develop a list of consultants that we can call upon to help us with application processing. The direction from the commission in the past has been that applications take precedence over the work plan, so that it does knock back our work plan scheduling when we do get very busy with the applications.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments from the commission? Okay, thank you. And I will check if there's any questions or comments from the audience in the room. And I will look for virtual hands. I am seeing none. So I'll go back to the commission, and I believe we were just receiving this report. There's no action to be taken?
That's correct. This is informational.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we'll move on to item 8A, the work plan, current and future proposals. Any additional comments on that?
Thank you. This does start on page 127 of your agenda packet. We've touched on this in the previous item, but all of the applications on file are pending the tax share agreement component, which is a process that is conducted by the county assessor, auditor, CEO, and the Board of Supervisors. We did receive one new application from Anderson Valley CSD that's proposing to annex the district's sphere for fire and ambulance services. That is not a complete application at this time, but we will be working on processing that as well. And I don't have any other updates to note.
Thank you. Are there any commissioners with additional questions on the work plan? Mr. Ward?
It is incomplete for that tax share agreement. The activation of latent powers is subject to that tax share process.
Oh, it is, okay.
I'm not seeing any additional questions from the members of the commission, so I will look towards the audience and virtually, and I'm not seeing any hands raised or anybody coming forward. We can move on to item 8B, correspondence.
Thank you. No correspondence to note.
Thank you. And then 8C, the CALAFCO Business and Legislative Report. Were there any updates?
I just have a brief update. We did receive notice from the CALAFCO executive officer that the board adopted new annual fees. Those are consistent with the Consumer Price Index, which is 8.27% this year. And the annual conference, they did advise that that will likely have a similar increase with the CPI.
Thank you. Okay, I'm not seeing any. Mr. Ward, did you have a question or comment?
No, I was just going to talk about the next item.
Well, then let's go ahead and jump to item 8D, the executive officer's report.
Point of order, I think you have to set a executive committee now.
We did that in the,
Well, we did that on an interim basis. You were interim chair at the time. I mean,
we did that
do you
in
want to have a 3-people person on there? Because right now, there's only you and I.
No, we did that in the, at the beginning of the meeting, and I think that it is, I'm pulling it up, it's, oh, you're asking if we want to add a third person to the executive,
Because typically, it's a chair,
Committee.
vice chair, and treasurer,
which is the
which I
two of
hold
us.
2 of them.
Yes.
So I don't know if you want to add somebody, and then setting up a policies and procedure committee as well.
Well, that was, the commission was stated in the, or the members were stated in the first item, item 3B, and it was Mari Roden, Jerry Gonzalez, and myself. We could go back to the item if you'd like to change it, or?
I think what Commissioner Ward is saying that we have 3, and that is correct. We did miss that step in that item. My apologies. The executive committee is made up of 3 commissioners. It's typically the chair, the vice chair, and the treasurer. Since Commissioner Ward is 2 of those seats, then the chair can select a 3rd commissioner to sit on the executive committee.
Okay. Mari, go ahead.
Well, I just would volunteer to serve.
Okay, thank you.
So, okay, so you're on both committees, policies and procedures, and, okay.
And the executive.
Now, what about the work? It looks like there's a work plan ad hoc. That probably has to be redone each year.
That one has not been activated for like over a year, so I can bring that back at our next meeting if you'd like to discuss that one further.
Well, we don't have one right now, is what you're saying?
The members are not, I believe Commissioner Frohnberger was on that, and he's no longer here, so it would need to be reassigned, I think.
So can we just take a moment? We were on the executive officer's verbal report. Was there any report for that?
Yes, I do have a few items.
So we'll do that, and then we'll go
Okay.
to 8E, which are the items that you're discussing right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So a few things to note on the executive officer's report. The deadline for the special district nomination period to fill the vacant regular member seat is March 14th at 5 p.m. So this is for the remainder of the regular member term previously held by Commissioner Orth, that was 2021 to 2024. The legal services RFP period closed on February 28th, and we received 8 proposals. Those proposals will be reviewed by the executive committee later this month with the intent that a recommendation be brought to the commission at the April 3rd meeting. Also, a reminder that the 700 forms are due April 1st, and we do need wet signed forms in the office that specifically name LAFCO, so please let me know if you have any questions or need assistance with those. Also, commissioners, new commissioners are required to submit 700 forms upon being seated, so please send those in when you can. And then we'll be looking to schedule an executive committee for mid-March to review the preliminary budget and the legal services proposals. So committee members, please look for that scheduling email and get back to me when you can. And that's all I have for the executive officer's report.
Thank you. Did anybody have questions on any of those items? I'm not seeing any questions or comments. I'm not seeing anybody come forward in the room, and I don't see any hands raised virtually. Okay, so now we can move on to item 8E, the committee reports. And is it appropriate, and this might be a question for Marcia, is it appropriate to add an additional executive committee member at this point, or does that need to be brought to the next meeting for a vote?
Was it possible that that was, but I noticed that Uma said that that was part of that first item, it just didn't get covered.
Yeah, we could open up 7B again and go back to it?
Yeah,
Okay.
yep. That's what I would do.
Oh, it's not 7B, it
3B.
is 3B. So we'll go back to 3B, and Commissioner Roden has volunteered to be participatory in the executive committee.
I would like to nominate her
Okay, thank you.
as a motion, so maybe we ought to get
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
I would second.
Thank you. So I just want to go back to the item. We now have a nomination and a second for the executive committee. And are there any other changes that anybody would like to make to the policies and procedures committee while we're back on this item? I'm not seeing any changes, so I guess, Larkin, could we have a roll call for the updated executive committee and approval of the policies and procedures committee?
Yes, Commissioner Gonzalez,
it. Yes.
Commissioner Roden, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, Commissioner Horsley,
Yes.
Commissioner Kristen,
Yes.
Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
and Chair Mulhern.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you for that. Okay, item 8F, commissioner reports, comments, or questions. Do any commissioners have anything they want to report?
I'd like to add, though, we have 2 people, well, we have a special district person coming hopefully in the next month or two. Our commissioner from the county is not here, how are we going to seat everybody? If everybody shows.
Well, the alternates typically sit either at the table here with me, or they can sit in the audience, as long as the voting members are all up on the dais, which we will have enough.
Okay. And that
If
will
teleconferencing is an option, I may take it up.
make 2 meetings.
Okay.
I don't
Thank
have
you.
anything to add.
Candace?
I just have a comment that especially with the public hearing item, that to me, this is a perfect example of what LAFCOs are all about. And that's ensuring orderly development in the health and safety of our citizens and providing cooperation of agencies and making sure that there is cooperation working together to meet those goals. So I just want to say I'm very pleased to see that happening at this point. Thank you. And looks like this will be a continuing goal for the LAFCO Commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm not seeing any additional comments, so I'll call for adjournment. Thank you.